Pep Guardiola has ruled out any massive signings in January to cope with defensive problems. First and foremost, Ali, the right policy for you?
Yes. I think you don't go chasing something that in the end is not going to help you all that much. And so my point is very simple. They're 11 points behind from Liverpool. I don't think they catch Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool is coming back to the pack. And I don't think that Manchester City has proven that they can be consistent enough to be perfect from here on out. Part of that is because, well, defensively they have their issues. But even if you were to address that, the 11-point gap still there. You're still going to need help from Liverpool, a help that I don't think is coming, and you still need to be perfect. And I don't think they have shown enough consistency, or they have shown enough of a level of play that we have seen over the last couple of seasons to suggest that they're going to be perfect from here on out.
Behind closed doors, will he be pretty philosophical, or do you think he'll be kicking himself about the decision in the summer not to have brought in a big centre-back signing?
Well, and so that's really a larger conversation in simply saying, whatever you think you were going to resolve in the winter, if that issue was going to come up, and you knew it was going to come up at some point, or there was a possibility that it could come up, well, then maybe you address that back in the summer, where you could have gone after a defender. Because let's not forget that the options for Manchester City, even with Laporte available, were Otamendi right next to him, who's a ticking time bomb. He's a mistake waiting to happen, and we have seen that time and time again. He's been an important player for Manchester City, but there's also mistakes there. And John Stones, who we keep waiting for, and not so much. And so there was an opportunity for Manchester City and Guardiola to make that a priority. They did not. And so now you're living with those consequences, because the moment that Laporte went down, then panic, because now you're making decisions. I remember one game in particular where he had Rodri and Fernandinho playing center backs. And so if those are the choices that a club like Manchester City has available to them, then it's a lack of planning in terms of what could have and might have happened had Laporte go down with an injury.
The greater pressure, of course, is the Champions League, and there's still a case that if they made a big signing at centre-back in January, they could go on and win that tournament for the very first time. Is this maybe an indication that the targets that they're after just simply aren't available?
Well, I just don't know what you think you're going to get in this market, in the winter market. What tends to happen in the winter market is that people start throwing silly money out, and you start making silly decisions. You start chasing it. And when you start chasing, you're making decisions that are emotional rather than objective. That's when you make mistakes. And so Manchester City may say, well, the only way that we're going to win Champions League is that we go after a center back. And then you go after a center back who's not really the sort of player that you should be going after, because it's not the level of player that you need anyways. And so therefore you plug him into a position where you think and you hope that he's going to be successful. Turns out that he's not good enough to do that. And so you don't want to throw silly money at somebody who's not at the level of play that you want. And so, at this point, if you're Pep Guardiola and you're Manchester City, you say, well, this is the bet we made, so we might as well lay in it and hope that we have enough on the other side of the field to get us through some of this big game. And hope that Laporte comes back and he is clear to play, and he's excellent, and he's fit, and he's fresher than everybody else, and maybe he makes that big of a difference. Maybe that pushes Fernandinho back up into the center midfield, and that creates a little bit more of a defensive presence and a little bit more athleticism out of the midfield. Maybe. These are all maybes, but the truth is that if you wanted to avoid the maybes, you should have made a decision back in the summer to have certainty that you had a player in place, just in case somebody went down.
What does your gut tell you about their Champions League campaign?
That they're fortunate that Champions League is not going into the knockout stages right now. Because if it did, they would be in a little bit of trouble. However, that doesn't happen until the spring. And it gives them some time to get themselves right, to get themselves healthy, and then focus solely on trying to win that competition. And if that's the case, Manchester City, from the midfield on forward, they're as good as anybody else in the world. It's just a matter of whether they can do enough defensively, and that's where Laporte plays a big part. So
we'll see if the next few weeks change Pep Guardiola's mind about having to restock in order to give himself a realistic chance of winning that Champions League trophy, elusive as it has been for him.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.